What if the greatest westerns weren't in color, but in black and white? These gritty, emotional, and legendary films defined the genre long before Technicolor rolled in. From dusty duels to moral reckonings, each story hits harder without a single splash of color. Ready to rediscover the classics? Saddle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's ride into cinema history. Stagecoach. John Ford didn't just make a Western, he sculpted a cinematic milestone. Stagecoach introduced the world to the rugged charisma of John Wayne, not as a brute, but as a layered hero with purpose. It wasn't just about guns and horses, it was about society on wheels. 9 strangers cross dangerous Apache territory, and through their journey, Ford unravels American archetypes: the fallen woman, the drunk doctor, the noble outlaw. The cramped stagecoach becomes a crucible where judgment, prejudice, and class collide. The vastness of Monument Valley, the first time it was immortalized on screen, contrasts sharply with the claustrophobic moral tension inside the coach. In an age where westerns were seen as disposable Saturday matinees, Stagecoach brought prestige, artistry, and dramatic depth. Ford turned dust and tumbleweeds into poetry. It wasn't just about reaching Lordsburg, it was about surviving each other. This film didn't just launch Wayne's career, it launched the adult Western. High Noon. High Noon doesn't gallop, it ticks. Gary Cooper, playing Marshal Will Kane, doesn't ride into danger for glory. He walks into it alone, hour by hour, minute by minute. The film unfolds in real time, each frame a countdown to confrontation. The enemy isn't just the returning outlaw, it's fear, apathy, and betrayal. Friends turn away. His new bride pleads for escape, but Kane stays. In this stark black and white morality play, the West becomes a metaphor for post-war America. Courage becomes isolation, and law becomes burden. Director Fred Zinnemann and screenwriter Carl Foreman, both navigating political blacklist fears, crafted a parable of conscience. Cooper, visibly aged and weary, lends authenticity to a man who does what's right, not what's popular. The haunting score and stark shadows echo Kane's loneliness. When that train finally arrives, it doesn't just bring the villain, it delivers the reckoning. High Noon isn't about shootouts, it's about standing alone when no one else will. And in that silence, the Western matured. Shane. He rides out of the wilderness and into legend. Shane is a storybook Western wrapped in melancholy. Alan Ladd's Gunfighter, quiet and somber, comes down from the mountains into a community at war with greed. The Starrett family offers him kindness and work, but peace is fleeting. Ranchers are being pushed off their land by a cattle baron, and Shane, despite trying to hang up his gun, can't ignore injustice. Filmed in glorious mountain valleys but often released in monochrome on early television, Shane captured the poetic heart of the genre. The child, Joey, idolizes him, but Shane knows the truth. A gunfighter's life is bloody, lonely, and without end. The final showdown is inevitable. His ride into the distance, wounded and ghost-like, is as iconic as anything in film history. "Come back, Shane!" Joey cries. But Shane and what he represents can never stay. This isn't a story about violence, it's about what it costs to stop it. Shane is elegy and myth, wrapped in dust and sorrow. The Oxbow Incident. There's no action hero in the Oxbow Incident, no sweeping vistas or grand showdowns, just a mob, a tree, and the weight of a decision that can't be undone. Henry Fonda leads a story that punches the soul. When a local rancher is reportedly murdered, a posse forms without a trial, without a sheriff, and without proof. What unfolds is a slow, agonizing dissection of fear, masculinity, and blind justice. 3 men are found. They're strangers. They plead innocence, but the crowd wants blood. Shot in sharp, suffocating monochrome, the film traps you in a moral noose. You're not watching justice. You're watching panic dressed as righteousness. The final moments, with a letter from one of the condemned, are among the most haunting ever put on film. Released during World War II, it was a warning. The danger isn't outlaws, it's unchecked power and silent complicity. The Oxbow Incident isn't entertainment, it's indictment. My Darling Clementine. Few westerns feel like lullabies, but My Darling Clementine is lyrical, dreamlike, and mournful. John Ford reimagines the tale of Wyatt Earp and the gunfight at the OK Corral, not as action-packed folklore, but as quiet tragedy. Henry Fonda's Earp is stoic, lonely, and deeply moral. He doesn't seek vengeance. He tries to bring order to chaos. Doc Holliday, played by Victor Mature, is a fading shadow, a man doomed by illness and reputation. The film floats between dusty streets and candlelit saloons, each frame composed like a photograph. Ford takes his time, letting the drama build like a slow-moving storm. This isn't the mythic West. It's a West of regrets, decency, and inevitable loss. Even the titular song, hummed gently in the background, feels like a farewell. My Darling Clementine is less about who shot first and more about the cost of keeping peace in a world that doesn't want it. A ballet of gunsmoke and sorrow. Winchester 73. One rifle, one revenge, and a trail of destruction left in its wake. Winchester 73 isn't just a Western, it's a chain reaction. James Stewart stars as Lynn McAdam, a man chasing his stolen rifle across the frontier. But that rifle doesn't just change hands, it changes destinies. Every man who touches it is drawn into conflict, revealing the darker sides of greed, power, and violence. Directed by Anthony Mann, the film fused noir intensity with the Western landscape, turning the open plains into emotional battlegrounds. Stewart, shedding his boyish charm, becomes something sharper, colder, more driven. The monochrome cinematography casts long shadows of both men and morals. It's a story where the object isn't just a gun, it's a symbol of justice, corrupted, of legacy, tarnished. The final showdown atop a rocky cliff is breathtaking, a confrontation not just of bullets, but of truth. Winchester 73 proved Westerns could be character studies wrapped in gunpowder. The Gunfighter. Gregory Peck wears a mustache, but it's the weight in his eyes that defines the gunfighter. He plays Jimmy Ringo, a legend tired of his legend. He walks into a town, hoping to see his estranged wife and child, and maybe, just maybe, start anew. But fame follows like a shadow. Every hot-headed kid with a pistol wants to be the one who kills Jimmy Ringo. The saloon becomes a prison, and Ringo knows the clock is ticking. This isn't a film about showdowns, it's about inevitability. In its black and white starkness, the film explores the curse of reputation, the prison of masculinity, and the futility of violence. Peck plays Ringo with restraint, no swagger, just sorrow. He's a man haunted by every shot he's ever fired. The Gunfighter strips away the romance of the outlaw and shows us the loneliness beneath the legend. It's not about how fast he draws, it's about how long he can outrun fate. Destry rides again. If Destry rides again were a whiskey, it'd go down smooth, then knock you sideways. James Stewart plays Tom Destry Jr., a deputy who doesn't carry a gun, and that's exactly why people underestimate him. He walks into a lawless town and stirs things up with wit instead of weapons. But beneath the humor lies grit. Marlene Dietrich plays Frenchie, a saloon queen with a heart of tarnished gold, and their chemistry ignites the screen. The film dances between satire and sincerity, poking fun at Western tropes while slowly revealing its serious spine. Destry may not shoot first, but he doesn't flinch either. When pushed too far, the pacifist becomes a force. The film's monochrome visuals gleam with grit, showing the contrast between comedy and cruelty. This was one of the first Westerns to blend genre with personality, and it worked. Destry Rides Again isn't just clever, it's courageous in its charm. Red River. This isn't just a cattle drive, it's a psychological duel. Red River pits John Wayne's grizzled Tom Dunson against Montgomery Clift's idealistic Matt Garth in a father-son dynamic that simmers with tension. They're pushing thousands of cattle across hostile terrain, but the real conflict is internal. Dunson believes in harsh justice. Matt believes in mercy. Shot in haunting black and white, the landscapes feel vast and indifferent, just like Dunson's code. Director Howard Hawks weaves epic scale with personal drama. Wayne, often a symbol of straightforward heroism, plays a man veering toward tyrant. Clift, young and principled, represents a changing frontier. Their final confrontation isn't just about cattle, it's about legacy, love, and letting go. Red River explores what happens when ideals clash on the open plain. In the end, the dust settles, but the scars remain. This isn't just a Western, it's a Shakespearean showdown on horseback. 3:10 to Yuma. It's not the gunfight that makes 3:10 to Yuma unforgettable. It's the waiting. Van Heflin plays a struggling farmer desperate for dignity. Glenn Ford plays a charismatic outlaw waiting for a train to take him to justice or freedom. They're trapped in a room, each man trying to sway the other. Outside, danger brews. Inside, it's a chess game. The film oozes tension, every shadow stretching the stakes. Shot in gritty black and white, director Delmer Daves crafts a claustrophobic masterpiece about morality, temptation, and courage. Ford's outlaw isn't just charming, he's dangerous because you want to believe him. Heflin's hero isn't brave. He's scared, but stands firm anyway. When that train whistle finally blows, it's not just a sound, it's salvation or damnation. 3:10 to Yuma proved you don't need a gunfight to create suspense. You just need two men, one room, and a ticking clock. It's as psychological as it is Western. The Tall T. If the Tall T teaches anything, it's that silence can be more terrifying than a gunshot. Randolph Scott plays a soft-spoken cowboy caught in a stagecoach robbery gone wrong. What starts as a simple ride turns into a deadly hostage situation when a trio of cold-blooded outlaws, led by a chilling Richard Boone, take passengers captive. But this isn't a loud, action-packed Western. It's quiet, brooding. The suspense seeps into the pauses, the stolen glances, the whispers of escape plans. As the bodies stack and the tension grows, Scott's character doesn't become a hero through bravado, but through decency and inner strength. Directed by Bud Boydicker, the film strips down the genre to its raw nerves. The black and white visuals highlight the moral grayness, who deserves to die and who might be saved. The Tall T is proof that less can be more, and a single canyon can hold more drama than a battlefield. A masterclass in minimalist tension. Day of the Outlaw. The snow isn't just cold, it's suffocating. Day of the Outlaw swaps the dusty plains for a frozen purgatory where danger lurks not from nature, but from men. Robert Ryan plays a hard-edged cattleman caught in a town overrun by sadistic outlaws hiding from the law. But here's the twist, he's no hero. He's cruel, unforgiving, and brutal in his own right. Yet, when faced with true evil, he becomes the town's reluctant savior. The outlaw gang, led by a half-civilized leader and his savage crew, bring dread with every frame. As they terrorize the villagers, Ryan plans to lure them into the mountains, into a storm, into death. The cinematography is stark, the snow endless, the morality frozen in shades of gray. This isn't a story of redemption, it's survival by sacrifice. Day of the Outlaw is bleak, bold, and quietly brilliant. A rare Western that feels like a noir blizzard. Ride the High Country. Two old guns. One last ride. Ride the High Country is the Western genre looking in the mirror. Randolph Scott and Joel McCrea play aging lawmen hired to transport gold. One wants to retire with dignity. The other plans to steal the shipment. But along the trail, everything shifts. They save a runaway bride, face ruthless miners, and confront the ghosts of their own pasts. The film, directed by a young Sam Peckinpah, reveres the code of the Old West even as it mourns its passing. McCrea's character utters one of the greatest final lines in Western history. "All I want is to enter my house justified." The landscape is beautiful, but the story is intimate. These men don't just ride for gold. They ride for honor, memory, and the chance to do one last thing right. Ride the High Country is a swan song for the heroes of yesteryear, bathed in black and white grace and quiet finality. Man of the West. Before Eastwood, before Bronson, there was Man of the West, a savage story of past sins refusing to stay buried. Gary Cooper plays Link Jones, a reformed outlaw trying to build a new life. But fate pulls him back when he's stranded with two innocents and captured by his old gang. Led by a terrifying Lee J. Cobb, the gang is feral, broken, and brutal. Link must pretend to rejoin them to save his companions. What follows is a psychological descent into the darkness he tried to escape. This isn't a film of shootouts. It's a film of emotional warfare, humiliation, and moral crisis. Cooper, usually the emblem of virtue, plays it differently here, haunted, torn, ashamed. Director Anthony Mann's stark direction and shadowy cinematography turn the West into a personal hell. Man of the West asks, can a man truly change? And if he can't, what is he willing to destroy to protect the life he wants? It's not just a Western, it's a reckoning. They died with their boots on. Errol Flynn plays General George Armstrong Custer with sweeping bravado in They Died with Their Boots On, a film as much myth as history. From West Point troublemaker to Civil War hero to doomed cavalry commander, the film paints Custer as a flawed but noble figure, charging into legend. It's operatic, romantic, and historically skewed, but undeniably captivating. Olivia de Havilland plays his steadfast wife, grounding the story in emotional stakes. The black and white visuals give the battle scenes a chilling elegance, especially the final stand at Little Bighorn. While the film glosses over harsh realities, it captures something elemental about American mythmaking. Custer isn't portrayed as a reckless glory hound, but as a man swept by fate. His final charge isn't madness, it's martyrdom. They Died with Their Boots On is spectacle infused with sentiment, and though its facts are debatable, its impact on the Western genre is undeniable. It doesn't tell the true story, but it tells a powerful one. The Westerner. In The Westerner, Justice wears a black robe and a smirk. Gary Cooper plays a drifter accused of horse theft in a town run by Judge Roy Bean, a whiskey-loving tyrant with a pistol instead of a gavel. Walter Brennan, in a career-defining role, portrays Bean with a mix of humor, menace, and tragic dignity. The film pivots not on shootouts, but on the strange bond between the lawless judge and the principled drifter. Their cat-and-mouse dialogue crackles with wit, but as fences go up and land disputes rise, their friendship is tested by the clash between frontier freedom and encroaching order. Shot in crisp black and white, the dusty saloons and empty prairies echo the larger theme, the end of the Wild West. The Westerner isn't about outlaws or gunfights. It's about how history bends the myth of justice. And sometimes justice isn't served by the law, but by the heart. Broken Arrow. Before Westerns began reevaluating their portrayal of Native Americans, Broken Arrow took a courageous first step. James Stewart plays Tom Jeffords, a former soldier who dares to treat the Apache not as savages, but as people. He negotiates peace with Chief Cochise, portrayed with quiet strength by Jeff Chandler. What follows is not just a cross-cultural alliance, but a love story. Jeffords falls for a young Apache woman, played by Deborah Paget. In stark black and white, the Arizona landscape becomes a battleground of prejudice, hope, and betrayal. The film doesn't flinch from violence, but it also doesn't glorify it. It's about diplomacy, trust, and the tragic cost of trying to change minds hardened by bloodshed. While some casting choices reflect the era's limitations, the message was revolutionary. Peace is harder than war, and respect must be earned. Broken Arrow was the Western that dared to see the other side and showed audiences a new frontier of empathy. Blood on the Moon. Blood on the Moon is a Western soaked in shadow, literally. With its noir lighting and psychological unease, this film pulls the genre into darker territory. Robert Mitchum stars as a hired gun who finds himself in the middle of a land dispute between ranchers and settlers. But nothing is what it seems. Lies, betrayals, and shifting loyalties swirl through the film like a dust storm. Director Robert Wise uses tight compositions and night scenes to trap viewers in a mood of suspicion. This isn't about good guys and bad guys, it's about survival, strategy, and the cost of trusting the wrong people. Mitchum's performance is restrained but magnetic, his character constantly navigating the blurred lines between loyalty and guilt. The gunfights are brief but brutal, and the emotions cut deeper than the bullets. Blood on the Moon doesn't ride with honor. It crawls through moral murk, and it's beautiful in its brutality. The Iron Horse. Before sound, before color. There was The Iron Horse. Directed by a young John Ford, this silent epic told the story of the building of the Transcontinental Railroad, America's most ambitious project, driven by sweat, steel, and sacrifice. With no dialogue, the visuals had to roar. And roar they did. Towering locomotives, endless plains, and thunderous stampedes fill the screen in black and white grandeur. Ford didn't just tell a story, he mythologized the West. Real-life history and fictional drama intertwine as settlers, soldiers, and saboteurs clash across wild terrain. Trains weren't just vehicles, they were symbols of progress, unity, and conquest. The film's scope is massive, its emotions primal. Though silent, its message thunders. The West wasn't won easily, and every rail laid carried a cost. The Iron Horse was more than a film. It was a declaration that cinema could tell American history with power and poetry, even without a single spoken word. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend. That one line encapsulates the aching heart of the man who shot Liberty Valance. John Ford, in his final great Western, strips away the genre's mythology to ask, who really built the West, the gunslingers or the lawmakers? James Stewart plays Ransom Stoddard, an Eastern lawyer who becomes a senator after supposedly shooting the notorious outlaw Liberty Valance, played with snarling menace by Lee Marvin. But the truth is more complex. John Wayne's Tom Doniphan, rugged, loyal, and quietly noble, holds the real secret. Told in flashback and bathed in shadows, the film is elegiac and sorrowful. The black and white palette underscores the moral grayness. It's not about who fired the shot, it's about who history chooses to remember. Liberty Valance isn't a tale of heroism, it's a funeral for it. The West is changing, and the gunfighters are vanishing. But not before one last sacrifice is buried beneath legend. Lonely Are the Brave. A man born too late for his time, Lonely Are the Brave is not your typical Western. It's a farewell letter to the cowboy way of life. Kirk Douglas delivers one of his most heartbreaking performances as Jack Burns, a drifter and cowboy who refuses to live in a fenced-in world. He rides a horse, carries no ID, and scoffs at modern conveniences. When he deliberately gets arrested to break out his friend from jail and learns his friend has accepted life behind bars, Jack becomes a fugitive in a world that no longer has room for men like him. Chased by helicopters and jeeps through the New Mexico mountains, his horse becomes his last link to freedom. The stark black and white cinematography reflects the harsh truth. The frontier is gone. The world is paved now. And Jack's code of honor, bravery, and self-reliance is an echo. Lonely. Are the Brave is a Western without a West, and that's what makes it unforgettable. Gunmans Walk. A family torn by pride. Gunmans Walk centers around rancher Lee Hackett and his two sons, one calm and decent, the other a violent, arrogant killer. When the favored son murders a Native American over a woman, the family spirals into tragedy. What makes this Western stand out is its focus on emotional trauma rather than trail dust. It's about privilege, toxic masculinity, and generational blindness. Lee Hackett, a man who always got his way with a gun, must now reckon with what he's passed on to his children. Shot in expressive black and white, the film isn't interested in wide-open spaces. It's interested in closed hearts. This is a drama that unfolds like a Greek tragedy, where fate is written not in prophecy, but in parenting. Gunmans Walk is an intimate, tense Western that feels just as relevant today. Sometimes the most dangerous outlaw is the one raised at your own dinner table. Fort Apache. The first in John Ford's legendary cavalry trilogy, Fort Apache mixes honor, arrogance, and the cruelty of command. Henry Fonda plays Lieutenant Colonel Owen Thursday, a rigid, glory-hungry officer who takes charge of a remote post and immediately clashes with native tribes he doesn't understand. John Wayne plays Captain York, a seasoned soldier who urges diplomacy, but Thursday is obsessed with military prestige. The inevitable result? A disastrous battle that costs lives and reveals a dark truth. Ford, often accused of romanticizing the West, takes a harder look here. The black and white visuals emphasize the starkness of right versus wrong and how history is often written by those who fail upward. What makes Fort Apache stand out is its final scene, where Wayne tells reporters a noble lie to protect the honor of the fallen. The West wasn't just conquered, it was polished, rewritten, and mythologized. And Fort Apache makes you question every tale told by the victors. These 23 black and white Westerns aren't just old, they're timeless. They defined the myths, challenged the truths, and painted the American frontier with shadows, grit, and soul. Whether it's a quiet outlaw or a reluctant hero, each film proves one thing: you don't need color to make a masterpiece ride tall.